All right, well, welcome to this episode of Abundance Talks. I have a very special guest. He's actually the second guest of the show, so I really appreciate him coming on. But this is Mr. Matt Wigler. Thank you for joining us today. I'm
Thanks,
gonna
Henry.
let you talk about who you are and what you do. But if you're an entrepreneur or if you're someone that is into expanding in their passion and maybe making a business or a hobby that might make you a little bit of money, he might be the guy to talk to. So Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Henry. It's great to be with you. So basically, to give you a short summary, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I started working as a professional musician when I was very young. I was in high school and started playing with some bands that were pretty well known in the Washington, D.C. area. Did my first year of college at Manhattan School of Music in New York, and then came down to University of Miami, which has a great music school, Frost School of Music, and I ended up getting my music degree and also went to business school at University of Miami. So I'm, as far as I know, permanently in Miami now. I have two businesses that I've started. One is about 5 years old. It's called MHW Live Music, and we provide the live entertainment programming for a lot of hotels nationwide. So if you go to a luxury hotel and you see musicians or DJs that play in the lobby, the restaurant, the pool, that sort of thing, we, as of right now, are in about 60 hotels around the country, managing those entertainment programs. And the second business, which is about a year old, was kind of born out of the pandemic shutdown. All the hotels closed down. And basically, we had developed a pretty effective business-to-business sales process for MHW Live Music. And I had this idea, I wonder if we could sort of spin that off into a separate business, trying to figure out, who needs help achieving this consistent pipeline of sales opportunities, essentially, B2B prospecting. And it turns out that a whole lot of people need help with that. And so that business, Wigler Group, is now growing very quickly. We're focused on marketing agencies as our main market that we're providing the service to. There's a very interesting irony in that lots of marketing agencies of all sizes, they're professional marketers and they know how to run big, campaigns, billboards, TV, radio, all this stuff. That doesn't necessarily translate to them having a fully built business-to-business process to get new clients for themselves. And so that's where we come in, and we've got a team of sales reps that work on behalf of our clients and book some pretty exciting meetings for them to close new business. So that basically brings us to today. And now, with the reopening of the hotels, both of these businesses are growing pretty quickly.
I can imagine. And so when we originally started talking, we actually connected through LinkedIn of all places. And so when I saw the connection through LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, this is going to be business, right? This is going to be a business-minded guy. And I started looking, I looked you up actually. So I pulled you up on, it came up on YouTube. I did a Google search, but I found a YouTube video and it was you playing some music, right? So you're a jazz musician, is that right? Correct? Yeah, so you're playing some music. And I'm like, okay, so he's into music. And then I started looking into this. He's built a few businesses now, two businesses, one 5 years old, and the other one a little over a year. And so it started I started thinking about that. And there's so many people that I've talked to that message me that talk about, they want to do their dream, they want to follow their passion. And let's say it's music, right? Well, a lot of times what I've seen when you want to be a guitar player or piano player or, whatever, something in music, I feel like there's a lot of, well, you can't make a career out of that, right? And you need to get a real job, or you need to, and like kill this dream of yours. And not everybody probably wants to be a CEO or founder, but you found a way to where you have something that's your passion. And not only do you probably still play a lot of music, I'm sure, but you've built businesses that allow, especially just talking about the working with the hotels, that allow people that want to perform.
Sure,
Everybody wants to perform, whether they're on the biggest stage in the world or with a, small group of people, they want to
sure.
perform. So what was your mindset when you're thinking, okay, I'm going to school, I'm getting this music degree, I'm going to get a business degree too? You didn't just seem like it didn't, you go work for somebody. You kind of went and did your own thing. So what was the inspiration to take that risk and go out on your own?
That's a good question. And, being on the Positive Mindset podcast, I mean, the thing is, you can make a career out of almost anything if whatever it is that you are offering, a product, a service, whatever, if there's some demand for it and you can provide it in such a way that the customers are happy, then you can make it work. You just have to do that over and over again at whatever it is you're providing. I mean, I had this idea for the first business probably about 3 years before I actually started it. And it was
Okay.
from me going out and performing at these places and seeing that, hey, wait a minute, everybody's kind of doing their own thing in a disorganized hodgepodge, different musicians and DJs and the hotel managers in there, and they're stressed and they're doing other things. And I thought, I wonder why there's not a business that specializes in just this. Basically, a large percentage of these luxury hotels and resorts, especially in certain markets, have a pretty good amount of entertainment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yet there's no company that's, brought that all together and specialized in that industry. And so I had this idea from having played at a lot of these hotels just as an independent musician. And then it was right around the time that I graduated from college that I said, why don't I go out and start pitching this to some potential clients. And it took a while before I got the first client. I mean, I can't remember, it took over a year of going out, and
Okay.
I went to some conferences. I walked around the street with my briefcase and just, old fashioned knocking on the door and asking to speak to people. And in the beginning, didn't know what to say. And this is the whole thing now I realize as a principle for both of these businesses. And I think it's something which is kind of a universal principle. You've got to figure out when you're selling something, what do I need to say and who do I need to say it to? And you got to do constant iteration and tweaking until you get those variables perfectly aligned and you figure out this is what this type of customer is looking for. Not only are they looking for it, but this is how I can describe it to them in such a way that we get into alignment. And now we're really rolling, right? And so, to answer your question, I mean, I think that what I discovered is a passion is actually starting and running these businesses. The actual leadership of the business and bringing people together and going out and trying to accomplish a mission together, and we celebrate the milestones along the way, that I have discovered I'm passionate about. I love it. Very fulfilling. I have a great time doing it. We have camaraderie. It's really fun when you put a team together and can work together towards a goal. I would say that's a passion, just like playing the piano is a passion. And so I think one thing that people struggle with is that, you can make that passion. I could make, if playing the piano was the only thing I wanted to do, and I didn't have the passion for running the businesses, then it would still require me to be entrepreneurial about the way that I put myself out there and develop the career, right? So I don't want to say it's a misconception, but I think to some extent people get a little bit caught up on, am I passionate enough about this? To me, it's like you've got to go put yourself out there and be out with other people. And as you're out there doing it, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you're going to learn so much more being out there in the world with other people working on your goal rather than sort of trying to figure it out, you know, in your head before you go out there. And this is one of the big things that I'm always sharing about, right? You just got to get out there with other people because that's where the answers are.
Oh yeah, I agree. And so you said a lot there, and there's a lot to
Yeah, there's a
unpack.
lot in
And
that answer.
it had me thinking on many different things. So I was kind of breaking it down for the listeners on where's a great place to start. And so something that I've found really recently, one of the keys to success, if you want to consider this success, right? If that's what we're considering gauge of success, is that persistence. And so it started with the passion of like, I like music, I love music, I enjoy doing this. And then you kind of went step forward, step forward, step forward. How on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, I will not stop moving forward to this. You didn't have a goal necessarily in mind. You probably didn't envision the Wigler group and all these things down the road, but you knew you wanted to go left, whatever direction this was. If 10 is nothing is going to stop me, I'm going to continue this effort, this forward moving, and 0 being, hey, if I got a really good offer for a job that paid X amount of money, I'm going to take it and I'll pursue this later. Where was your mindset day 1 to 365 days later, that first year when you're probably getting a ton of rejection? Friends and family members are like, what are you doing? Just get a job. You got a degree, you got to go get this job. You know, where was your head at with that? And just when you take out it being about the music or the business or anything, but it was more of just like getting in this vibrational state of, this is the direction I'm supposed to go. I'm going to follow this path that God's leading for me. I'm going to move forward into it. You know, what was that like?
Well, you ask on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
20.
Okay, there we go. 20.
You understand? Because you've got to say, and I think there's an interesting distinction here. That doesn't mean I make my plan and I'm rigid and I never deviate from my plan. Because you kind of make a little plan, and then once you, like I was saying, once you get out there and start dealing with actual people, actual customers, right? If you're starting a business, you're going to have to adjust your plan, and you're going to have to make improvements, and you're going to realize some of those assumptions that I made before I came out here have turned out to be incorrect, and I need to make my adjustments. But when I say 1 to 10 and I'm giving you the answer 20, it is, you know, a lot of people are afraid to fail.
Oh yeah.
Okay. They should be afraid not to succeed.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I'll get your opinion on this. This is something that recently I've been trying to articulate, and I think it might be what you're saying. So that pass or fail or succeed or fail mindset is something that I've always seen things as was, did I succeed in this? Did I fail in this? And recently what I've started to do is, okay, if I achieve this, so I start these 2 businesses like this, if I achieve this, what type of person will I be? And then judging the success on, am I living as that person versus the businesses? Because probably when you live as that person, you're going to amass more meaningful stuff than you could have planned for by holding yourself to those characters and those standards of the energy. Because I've gotten, like, there's people that want to write books, there's people that want to do these things, and they'll message me and they'll say, hey, you know, you've inspired me to write a book, but I'm 62 years old.
Yeah.
And I start thinking about that, and partly I could rationalize with that because I say that sometimes with my, like, oh, this person's 20 and they're doing this better than I am, and for some reason that's a factor. But in reality, it's, are you living in that experience and that energy and that movement? That's where the happiness is going to come from. There's always going to be a new car, there's always going to be a new business, there's always going to be a milestone that you can enjoy, you know. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, and this is a big discovery that I had a couple of years ago. I could go deeper into this, but basically, I had a very interesting discovery. You know, what comes first is, like you're saying, is the way of being, and what comes after is the result. I mean, a lot of people think it's the other way around. Once I buy this kind of car, then I'm going to be more confident, but it never actually works out that way.
Exactly.
And I don't mean like pseudo fake confidence. I mean, like once you actually are out there being this way, then that's going to produce a certain result in your environment and take you in the direction you want to go. And I think a lot of people hear this as kind of hokey pokey, or
Oh yeah.
it's not. I mean, it's really not. So basically, if you go out and you read people that are much older than us and have been at it for much longer and they're very successful, what it takes to get there, whether it's in business or in the arts, it doesn't matter. Anybody who's had a long career and took a long journey to achieve some kind of mastery of anything. First of all, there's a lot of patience and persistence that goes into this over not just like a few months or even just a few years, over decades for a lot of people that really reach a great level of mastery at something.
Oh yeah.
And I think what some people, get discouraged or don't necessarily realize is, first, you've got to say, okay, what are the actions that I need to take? The way that I need to, my way of being is going to give me these kind of, actions that I take, which eventually will lead me to some milestone towards my goal. But the big thing is you've got to do those actions regardless of whether you feel like it.
Yes.
And I think that's what's consistent across, people that, you want to become a professional musician. Okay, well, I believe anybody can do that. There may be some inherent talent one way or another. I'm not 100% convinced about how much talent, natural talent, plays into it, because every professional musician I know has put in, their 10,000 plus hours of practicing. And that's what you don't see when somebody gets up on a stage and gives a concert. You don't see all of the practicing. Same thing with athletes. You don't see the thousands of hours that they were taking that same shot over and over again so that they can, look so effortless at the sport. And I think what all of these people have in common is they do what they're committed to doing, even if they wake up and don't feel like it that day, they do it anyway.
Oh yeah. So, I'm in fitness, and so I do personal training. I work with a lot of people, and this is a sports analogy, but a lot of times when you think, if you played sports or something like that, if you won an award or you won a championship, whatever you've done, of course, that is always a very fond memory. But a lot of times when I've talked to people, when I've really thought about stuff, what I'd always want to go back to is the practice, or like just to have one more good practice with them, or have one more, game, right? Like one more of the action. Because you can sit and look at the trophy all for the rest of your life, and you'll remember winning that trophy and it felt good. But would you rather just walk up and win that trophy one more time, or would you want to go do what you were doing to achieve that one time, right? And it's that action. And I think that's why people, serial entrepreneurs, right, that start lots of businesses, why they continue to do it, or why they amass large amounts of sums of money. I think when you have a perspective of not having a lot of money, it looks different, right? If you see someone that has $1 billion or 10 billion or 100 billion or 10 million, whatever the number is, there comes a point where you don't need any more money. Like you don't need, you can't even use it, right? In a sense of like spending it for your necessity, you don't need it. But it just becomes a point of your energy keeps leveling up, and you keep improving the way you move, the way you think, all those, that frequency that you're in, you just keep improving it. So you're just going to attract more and more of whatever your target was.
Yeah.
And it's living in that action that you really can't live without.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. It's living in the action. It's like watching somebody play a sport on TV versus actually getting on the field and playing it yourself. And so if you're the kind of person that likes to be out there playing it yourself, and you may be uncomfortable, you may get injured, you may get tired, whatever, but that's where you really get this feeling like, wow, I'm really out there, living it. And also that feeling in your stomach when you get a little nervous to, try something new, or expanding your capacity for something, whether that's in business. Hey, I'm going to go pick up the phone and call someone who maybe it's a very high level person that I'm a little bit afraid to reach out to, and you just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting is that if you ever sit with someone because I've coached a few people on this, right? Especially employees that, people that I brought onto the team. And I've sat there and said, let's make a call together. And people are like, no, and I'm not excluded from this. I was very nervous to do this not that long ago. So
Yeah.
it's not like this is not an inherent thing that I know how to do. I really force myself to do this, even though it doesn't come naturally for me. And you see, like, people are really nervous. Oh my God, I've never done this before. You got that feeling in your stomach, you got the heart racing, whatever. You dial the phone, whether the call goes well or not. Let's say the call goes terrible. Somebody's rude, they hang up on you, they say something, offensive. I promise anybody that's listening to this, you make that call, even if it goes really poorly, you're going to be more satisfied and you're going to feel better after than you did before. It's actually getting out there and putting yourself in a position of taking that risk. And that, it just lights people up. It's like, you got the spirit of adventure, right?
Oh yeah.
And once you get the bug for that, you want to keep doing it over and over again. And I think these people that, amass these amazing amounts of wealth or businesses, whatever, it seems to me that, like you said, there's a certain point where you certainly don't need any more money to buy things for yourself, but people are trying to do bigger and bigger projects. I mean, you saw these guys, Branson and Bezos are going to space, or went to space a few weeks ago. It's like, it's amazing that, both of them started basically from scratch, entrepreneurs, with these businesses. And now the level of project that they're taking on is, we're going to build a spaceship. I mean, that's amazing. And I can imagine, how exciting that sense of adventure is for them, that they just keep taking on bigger and bigger projects and bringing more people together. And that's an exciting thing to do.
Absolutely. And I would also say this too, if you're listening or watching this show, don't compare someone's level 10 to your level 1, right? That challenge to them to going into space or starting Amazon or, whatever you were doing prior to that, they had these steps that they worked on. That's just what it led to. So your steps is that first one, whether you do want to write a book. I mean, if you've gone through anything and you're like, man, if I could share this book, that would be beneficial to people. If I could put this in there, it would help people. That is your level 1. And by doing that, what you're doing right there is what you'll just continue to do. And you'll just continue to do it. You'll continue to do it. The what will change, right? The writing the book, the starting the YouTube channel, the starting the podcast, playing the instrument, that will change over time. But what you're stepping into will continually be that frequency of the unknown, the expansion, the giving away.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? I think that's one of the biggest things. And you can go down all these rabbit holes of what the ultra wealthy are doing and all this stuff. But in reality, and the people I know, I don't know Jeff Bezos, but the people I know that are successful tend to give a lot away. And by a lot, I'm not just talking about financially, meaning time with them is very valuable. So what they give you in that time, if you're getting their attention, is really high. Whether it's like how to be better at your business, how to be better at your health, how to be better at whatever, they're giving that away because they've become experts in that field and they keep diving down, they keep going deeper and deeper into it. And that's one of the things, me being in the self-help personal development space, is I need to level myself up so that way when I'm talking to someone, I can help them level up so that they can do it away. So everything that I'm going towards, I want to master it and then give it away.
Yeah.
How you give it away is up to you, whether you put a course, do it for free, whatever, that's up to you. But that's, I think, the ultimate motivation is we, in the end, can only be as big as our weakest link.
Yep.
We can move pretty far ahead, but we still got to live with our neighbors. And so if we're building up ourselves so great, but not helping them at all, where's the point in that?
Absolutely. And I think there tends to be a misconception when people talk about being successful, or people who, we look at people who have become very successful. If you read these people's autobiographies, a lot of them say, this is thanks to thousands of people who have helped me along the way. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that I realized something a few years ago, which was very scary to me when I realized it. Now it's like, okay, this is cool, you know, but I realized that, and I don't just mean successful making money. I mean, that is one thing which this applies to, but it could be successful in any endeavor that you have. Most of it is by virtue of or involving other people. It's as it relates to other people that you bring together, or if it's a business and you want to be financially successful, it's as it relates to you bringing together lots of clients that are paying you for something and lots of employees or members of your company that are providing that thing to your clients. And that may be scary to some people that think, oh, I need to figure it out all on my own, or maybe I'm afraid to make those calls to people, but that's really how it works. What we define as success tends to be as it relates to bringing together groups of people. If you want to have a podcast with thousands of listeners, that's because there's real people that are getting value from what you're producing. And so I think people, you know, you just have to kind of get comfortable with that and then think, okay, how am I going to do it in a way, like you said, incremental little steps. You know, if you're going to write a book, you don't look at the whole book. Just look, you know, it's one thing.
One
A book
page.
gets written one word at a time.
Yeah.
It actually gets written one letter at a time. And everything is like that. Everything is little incremental, you know, laying one brick on top of the other persistently over a long period of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely agree. And that reminded me, there's this, I guess you could call it a quote, but there's this interview with Keanu Reeves where they ask him what he thinks happens when you die. And he paused and he said, the ones that you leave behind will miss you. That's, you know, kind of what he said. But I think that is a testament to success too, is the people that are behind, like say you pass away, whatever, your influence here, your legacy in sense, not of financial legacy or, you know, brand or anything like that, but the people that truly interacted with you, was their life improved because of you.
Sure.
Right. And you can do that through building a large organization. You can do that from running a mom and pop store in your local, you know, community. You can do that for working for somebody. You can do that through service. You can do it through, you know, so many things. And I believe it starts with passion, like where this all comes back down to is
totally.
people have passions for certain things. And so, you know, I always thought my thing was sales. So I've worked in sales for years. I ended up getting a job in fitness, selling gym memberships actually, but I was doing radio sales actually before that, of all things. And so I'm working in sales for years and thinking that that's my thing. And then I worked for Gold's Gym and they went through bankruptcy through the pandemic. And so I was a district manager at the time and they laid off a lot of people. So I was one of the people that got laid off when the new company came in and bought them out through bankruptcy. And so I was without a job trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I'm like interviewing, trying to figure out what's the next step. I mean, I have kids, married, gotta figure out, okay, I gotta get income coming in. And I would go on these interviews and immediately just, this sounds terrible. Don't want to do this job, tank the interview, don't want to do it. And I started thinking, okay, well, what did I love about my last job? And sales was the first thing that came to mind. But then I also thought, well, I really loved coaching people. You know, I really enjoyed all the one-on-ones I had, you know, especially for the people that wanted them, right? I didn't care what your position was. If you were on my team, whether you're a front desk associate that I never saw or a direct report general manager or something like that. If you wanted a development plan, we would do it. And whether we were doing a call once a month, every other week, we would figure it out. And I realized, okay, that's something that I really miss. And so I had this podcast that I wasn't doing much with at the time. I would do an episode randomly here or there, sometimes a couple times a month, sometimes not at all for 6 months at a time. And I said, well, I'll just coach myself through the podcast. I'll be my own client and I'm just not going to stop. I just, at that point, I'm like, I'm just not going to quit. And so at that point, I was maybe getting like 10 listeners, and I'm doing this thing, just pushing forward. And no matter what, I was like, no matter what, I'm just not quitting. And so it'll be a year at the end of this month, that I really kicked it off. And, now I get probably 20 something thousand plays a month. And that's not on the scale of things that huge, but it's one thing where I just was like, there's no quitting. I'm just going to push through this.
Absolutely.
But it was through that podcast that I discovered my true passion is actually working with people, not sales. I liked sales because I was doing that, but I'm not really a sales guy. I'm this person. So I just kept pushing forward. I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing this podcast. I'm going to keep doing it. And so it's helped me find what I want to do. And it sounds like the music has done the same thing for you. It started with, you have a passion for playing music. You still play music. I still do sales, but my core of like, I just kept pushing forward and niching down, and I'm going to continue to do that, niche down. But it seems like you accomplish more by niching it. Not that I'm doing less, I'm working now more than ever, but it's niching down on this thing, on this energy, on this love. And so that sounds like kind of the path that you've done.
Yeah. And I think from the story that you just shared, what's really important is that you were out doing things before you really figured out what you were passionate about. I mean, you're saying you were out doing it, you were going to do the podcast, you're not going to give up, you're persistent. And then at some point along the way, while you were out there actually doing it, you had this realization, oh, I really like coaching people.
Yeah.
To me, that is such a great example of this principle. It's this order of operations. A lot of people, I think, limit themselves, don't get out there and start doing things because they want to figure it out first. Before I go out and take this job or start this business or whatever, I need to figure out, am I really passionate about it before? That's the wrong order of operations. You got to go out there and be up to something. You got to be doing something, trying things with other people, experimenting. And along the way, the light bulb may go off. Oh yeah, I see what the commonality is through these last 3 jobs I had. I didn't like this and that, but there's this commonality that I realized I really like. Maybe it's coaching, like you said. I realized, oh, the commonality, I thought it was sales too. It's actually more leadership than it is sales and coaching. It's more like, I really like coaching my sales people on, okay, let's strategize together about how to, deal with this objection from a customer or something like that. That's really fun for me. And I've been pretty good at getting clients to buy our service too, but it's even more fun for me to be the coach, like what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, but I didn't realize that until after. There's no way I would have figured that out abstractly.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was, for me, I realized now, was a means to an end. I was good at it because I was good at connecting people. So I leveraged it for a long time. And then when I was in full control, because no one had control over the podcast but me, I didn't have to please an employer. It was just me. I just pushed forward through it. So one thing that I really wanted to hear your opinion on, and maybe your expertise, and I think this is a perfect segue to it, is what I think is allowing me to be successful now. Because I've tried entrepreneur things in the past and quit too early, whatever excuse, right? Market conditions weren't good, whatever I could make up, right? Didn't work out, but I always did well as an employee. And so what I'm doing differently is I created basically a business plan, like a mission statement, core values, things like that for me. And so, you building 2 successful businesses, I mean, one lasting over 5 years, most businesses don't last that long. So building them up like that, I'm sure you've put together mission statements and core values and vision statements and all those things. Have you ever applied one to yourself to where, hey, this is Matt's mission statement, and aligning with that like that?
Now that you put it that way, I've got a homework assignment.
Okay.
For myself, because that's really cool, right? And what's the sort of what's the commonality among all the things that I'm doing, and how does that help me achieve a personal vision that I have for myself? Because I think that's also an important thing. The businesses are not just for the sake of making money or whatever. I mean, people that want to run their own business, there's also this personal vision that they're trying to realize for themselves. So I have not done a personal vision statement, but now you've convinced me that sounds like a pretty good idea. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, the companies have clear missions that they're on, what we're trying to accomplish. But yeah, I think that's great. I mean, the more you can let your principles and your core values give you the actions that you need to take consistent with those commitments, the better. And then it's just a matter, like you said, of holding yourself accountable and actually doing the work. I mean, I think what you're sharing about, okay, you only had 10 listeners show up in the beginning, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do it again. If you had given up after 90 days, instead of 20,000 listeners, you'd have 0 today, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what I think. And the other thing is, if you do that for 10 more years, you may have 20 million listeners, or you may have 200. I mean, it's like, you may be surprised just how big it can be. And that's why, I mean, I'm very, very early in the beginning of my career. And even this business, we've had for 5 years is very early. I mean, if we come back together 5 years from now, I expect it's going to, and the way these things go, it tends to be kind of exponential, not necessarily a straight line. So,
absolutely.
I just think that it's that long-term horizon, it's that long-term vision, and sticking to your commitments over that time period, which for most people is very difficult to imagine. Oh my God, it's going to take me 10 years to get there. And that's probably how long it's going to take for some of these projects. Not all projects can be accomplished in 3 months or 6 months.
I agree. And the 10-year mindset is, or 20, whatever it is, the infinite mindset is one of the most powerful things I think I've adapted in my life. And I'm reaffirming it. So it's not like I was born with this. And so this is something that, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to start applying it. And that mindset of, I will do that. I will outlast you, not anybody specifically, but like I will outlast the negativity in my mind. I will outlast whatever goals are normally. Like I will continue to do this because the result doesn't matter. What matters for me is, did I do what I set out to do?
Yeah,
action
exactly.
wise.
Yeah.
And what I think has helped me, I'm more of a go with the flow type of person naturally. And in school, never really excelled a lot in school. I'd find things interesting. And then what I was interested in, I could get an A+, but anything else I really would struggle with. And so I would just kind of flow and just, people pleaser, kind of doing those things. And so when I decided to apply those business principles to my life, and I'm still doing it, like I'm still learning, adjusting, you can have a mission and it can change. That's one thing I tell people is like, okay, don't put so much pressure on coming up with the perfect mission statement today, because your perspective is going to change. So you're going to adjust it. But we all know those people that from a young age, they knew they were going to be a doctor, and then they become to be a doctor, right? They knew it. There was no doubt in their mind. They had their North Star. And so everything they did up to that point was for that. And sometimes that's instilled by their parents, right? And so it's not a true desire. And then they become a doctor and they hate it and they quit. But there's those people that know, like, I'm going to be a billionaire, and they're just like, boom, that's what they're going to do. But most of us, I feel like, are floating. And so when we have that thing that we can write on paper every day, we start with our mission, like your vision, right? Maybe it's to create a happier world. Like that's your goal. And then, your mission gets a little bit more specific on, to elevate people's frequencies through conversation, whatever it is, start doing that stuff, start building those in there, and you write it every day. You will quickly be able to realize what you're doing at that moment is not in alignment with that. I need to not do this. It's helped me a ton with diet. Helping people get fit for years was all about, okay, well, I just want to look good, right? I want to have abs. I want to do this, that. That's not enough to break a habit for 30 years where you've ate a snack, where you've done these things. Like No,
Sure.
it's got to be your mission where you're about to eat that food. And then you're like, wait a minute, my mission was to be the best father that I could be. And so in doing
Yep.
that, I'm going to build myself up and show how these foods are good. So I'm not going to eat
Yep.
this food. Like, or I'm not going to do, whatever it is. And I just have to be someone that has to see it every day because it was not gifted to me to where I'm like, every day I know what I'm waking up for.
And what's really powerful about what you just said is that uh, a mission which is about others is a lot more effective than a mission that's about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna do it for my kid so that he can be proud of me or what, that's a lot more powerful than just so that I can look good when I go to the beach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Because I mean, it's funny because people tend to be naturally, thinking a lot about themselves and all that. But then when you really get down to what people say is important to them, you ask someone, be honest, what's really the most important to you? They're going to say my family, my friends, my wife, right? That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
But then are you really acting according to that, right? Are you holding a grudge with your mom from 10 years ago at the same time you say that your family's so important to you? Well, wait a minute, that
It
doesn't
doesn't
make sense,
align.
right? So it's all these things like that you get that into alignment, and all of a sudden, that's what I was saying earlier about this idea. People are afraid to fail. I say you should be afraid not to succeed. That doesn't just mean like, oh, I want to make a lot of money or something like that. It's you know whatever that definition of success means to you. If that means having great relationships with all of your family, or having a great relationship with your spouse or whatever, that's success too. People should have a fear of not doing that,
Yeah.
right? I'm flipping that thing around on its head. And if you start with, wow, I'm afraid that I'm going to get 10 years down the road and not have maintained that good relationship, then that's going to change your whole way that you behave today, which then produces the results that you're looking for.
Oh, yeah. Well, so on that same note, well, there's two things. So one, there was this paper I used to always keep in my office where I hand wrote the word success and then I would draw a line and I said everything. So success would be what my mission was, what we were trying to accomplish that day, and anything other, any of the noise is under that. So
Yeah.
you just push it down. But so many people will let those little things, you talk about family, they say family is everything, but then they don't want to be the bigger person every time.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, there's every specific situation where you could come up with an idea of like, well, this is why I'm right and stuff like that. It's okay. Well, do you want to be
Sure.
right or do you want to be successful in
Right.
whatever
Right.
this is?
Exactly.
And so for
Exactly.
me, the definition of success is, I believe that we are beyond, like, this is just an experience. We are borrowing these bodies from the earth. And like, that's my belief. And so I think we were gifted an opportunity to experience in this body something. And so we need to do it in the way that pushes it to the highest vibrational state, meaning you accomplished what you can accomplish in the best way that uplifts the most people. That is success. If that means you needed to raise $1 billion because you wanted a business that's going to create a product that's going to reach all these people. For yours, for example, you're creating a business that allows artists to play. That's what it does. It allows artists to play. On the other end, it allows a service company to serve.
Sure.
Right. So they can
Yeah, of
create
course.
experience. And so there's two things.
Yeah.
And so that is what you're doing by,
Yeah.
you're making money and there's, profit and there's all that business stuff. But that's just the mechanic on how it runs. The basis of it is now you found a venue for an artist that wouldn't have found it on their own. So instead of sitting at home or waiting tables or doing something they don't want to do, they're playing, they're enjoying. I mean, I was just at an event Friday and there was a band playing and it was at a nice hotel and, they were just having the time of their lives. I'm thinking, okay, if they weren't here, what would they be doing? Right? How miserable would they be having to be behind a desk? And so everybody had their piece in that. There was a company like yours that made that happen. And so that's where people need to know, like, your passion, whatever it is, you need to move forward with it and be that best version of yourself, because it's not just about you. It's about that artist that wants to play, that doesn't want to have to be a accountant or be a whatever. They want to play. They want to create music. They want to share it with everybody.
Right. And that's the same point about, are you motivated? The same thing you're saying about the diet, right?
Oh yeah.
Is what's driving you about making a dollar, or can you think about it at a higher level in terms of, if I can bring together these people in this way and it's going to produce something which is mutually beneficial. If you can produce something, product, service, whatever, that really is valuable, really solves a problem or provides the correct value relative to what it costs, like you keep doing that for a long time, then you're gonna make money, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it's actually not as complicated as, there's a lot of lower level complications, like, am I doing my accounting correctly? Am I doing my whatever? There's all that kind of stuff, which is, there's people that know how to, that's the other thing I talk about. You don't have to necessarily know every single thing yourself. You can bring together other people that have expertise that can help you along the way, right?
And they want to.
And that's what, there's a theme here, right? It's about going out and being with other people and not thinking that you have to do it all on your own. One of the things that I've been doing, recently, there's been a number of people, well, there's always people pinging me on LinkedIn. Are you interested in this or that? You want to take a meeting? You want to buy this?
Oh yeah.
Like everyone has that on LinkedIn. But some of them, when I look and I see, oh, there's somebody that's been around for a long time in whatever it is that they do. I've been taking meetings when I have free time. I'll say, sure, I'm not saying I'll be a customer, but I'll meet with you, because if they've been around for 20 or 30 years longer than me, and they're in a particular line of business that is not what I'm in, and well, clearly I'm going to learn something, and I'm going to go and ask questions, and then have that person maybe as a resource in the future. You just never know. And that's being open-minded and having a network of people that can help you when you have questions, or, I think that's very important.
Oh yeah. And so I think that's probably part of the salesman in you that have gone through like the 100 people rejected by all of them, that you might have a little bit of a soft spot for them
to be on
too,
the other side, right?
Listen to them.
Right.
Like sometimes when I get the people soliciting in my neighborhood, they go door to door. I'm usually probably never going to buy anything from them, but I try to be nice. I'll say,
Sure.
Hey, appreciate you coming by. I know you got a tough job. I'm not interested, but keep doing it. Be special, because I know they've got yelled at 20 houses down, stuff like that. So that's the soft spot we have for salespeople in the field.
Sure.
So, I have one takeaway, I think, from this, and I'll be interested to hear kind of your final thoughts, anything that maybe you just wanted to say in general, but your motivation to succeed. I've been thinking about mine as we've been talking, and as I'll say, my podcast grows, because I've got a gym that's growing really well. The podcast is something very different for me. It's an internet business, just very different. There's times where like I just don't want to do an episode, whether it's creative block. I think that's probably what it is. Like creative block happens, versus in my brick and mortar business, I know like I can just do this and it'll continue, like it just operates. But when you're creating something like a podcast or a song or whatever, there's that creative block. And so I'll run into that where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I just won't do an episode. And then I think about, there's somebody that is planning on listening to that episode and it's going to impact their day. I have to do this episode. It is a little bit of pressure. But then they'll message me on Instagram or LinkedIn, and it'll be an episode that I thought was terrible, because there's tons of times I put on there, I'm like, this one's bad. No one's going to listen to it. I don't even want to put it out.
It's like musicians. Everybody thinks, oh, that recording was terrible. Then people say, that was my favorite.
I know. They'll say, hey, I was in a dark place today. I'm really glad I found your podcast today. And I was like, man, that was just something I did. So how many things, if you're watching this or listening, how many things are things that you would just do that aren't a big deal to you that would impact somebody else for the better if it aligns for you? So that's kind of like my thought for anybody listening, stuff like that. Think about, if you don't put out that book for what you've been out through, maybe one person would have read it, but that one person that would have read it, maybe it would have changed their entire life.
Yeah.
So you kind of owe it to 'em to do it in
Yeah.
that sense. So yeah, so I didn't know if you had any final thoughts or anything that you thought about, for people that are just wanting to live abundantly and maybe even experience a life like you, and how you can turn a passion into a career and employ people and give people opportunities, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're sharing is great. And, you know, the larger the project gets, the more people you get involved, the more customers you have, the more listeners you have, all of this stuff. The stakes of accountability go up,
Absolutely.
right? And that's where, well, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know that there's all of these people that are counting on me to show up on time or do what I said I was going to do. And that's so important. And if you're comfortable with that, it's very fulfilling because, my feeling is, I've got, the people that work with me in these businesses, if I can provide the environment for them to be successful and accomplish their goals, then I'm going to become successful and accomplish my goals by virtue of the fact that, I've created that environment for them, right? And I think you really have, that's what we've been talking about today, is you really have to start with, what can I do to help others achieve what they're going for in such a way that, we are accomplishing something together. So, I think it's great. And I love the positive mindset. And like I said, I mean, that's the thing, right? Even if it's just one person that hears this and picks up the phone and makes one more call, whether it, whether it's a sales call, whether it's, wow, you know what? I am going to call my mom who I haven't talked to in a long time. Anything like that. Then, we did our job today, and that was a success.
Well, they say your keys are always the last place you look, right? So I think there's a deeper meaning in that for sure. So, well, Matt Wigler, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I would encourage people to connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn / Matt Wigler.
I'll put the link in the description.
There's only 2 of us that have that name, but the other Matt Wigler tends to go by Matthew. So you'll find me on there.
Okay.
And then my website, mattwigler.com. The links to the businesses are on there, and some music videos and all of that stuff. But I'm pretty responsive. So if anybody writes to me, then I'll get back to you usually pretty quickly. And yeah, it's great to be with you, Henry. I appreciate it.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks for joining us. Everyone have a great day, and we can't wait to talk to you next time.